Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev. Now, first things first, this new little project that we're working on has nothing to do with Project Prime, aka the project that we started working on at the very beginning of Let's Dev. And before we get any further, indeed, we will return to said project at some future date. However, the next step is, I'm still debating whether or not I want to go through with recording an episode on that step, because it involves pretty much nothing but bug fixing, and I don't necessarily know if that'll make for a fun video. Nonetheless, I'm not shy of ideas, so in the meantime, while I try to figure out what I'm going to actually be doing with Project Prime, we're going to start on a new little fun side project that melds arguably two of the most popular things on my channel together in one ball of just a potential, hopefully a fun, cool experiment. Let's put it that way. Now, before we actually get into this cool project, I want to kind of pull it back a bit and actually explain what we're going to be doing, because this is actually going to be a sort of a continuation of what we started in the previous episode of Let's Dev. And yes, indeed, that means we're going to yet again be touching upon the pseudo 3D effect. Let me actually explain a bit about how this pseudo 3D effect is achieved. Now, the best way that I can explain how this effect is achieved is, imagine a loaf of bread, if you will, and now imagine that loaf of bread cut up into bread slices. Now, imagine that stack of bread being imported into GameMaker layer by layer, each slice being placed on top of one another until you have the full stack of bread, which is, again, the entire loaf of bread. And because of just how perception works, it looks like a 3D model. Now, as I said, this project is going to be melding two of the arguably biggest things on my channel together into one ball of hopefully successful fun shenanigans, and that is Let's Dev meets a Nuclear Throne. Now, imagine you're playing a game of Nuclear Throne, you're in a high intensity situation, you've got bullets flying at you from every single direction, you're low on ammo, you're low on health, and suddenly out of nowhere you get hit by a bullet or a maggot that you didn't even see. And why didn't you see it? Well, that's because said bullet or said maggot was probably behind a wall that you couldn't see because of the way that Nuclear Throne's angle is done at. Now, really, the obvious fix here would be to, I don't know, add an indicator, you know, hey, there's a bullet, a maggot, or some kind of danger here. Watch out. You know, maybe an arrow, maybe a nice little outline, you know, something. But no, if Vlambeer thinks that's too simple, it's too simple for us as well. So instead of going that route, let's do something a little bit crazy, shall we? What if you could see those bullets or those maggots by turning the camera? That's right, we're basically going to make this into this. Well, to a certain extent, of course. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves, because these first couple of episodes are actually going to be much like we did in the previous episode. We're going to be touching upon making the actual models first, then we're going to import those into the game, and that is our main game plan, at least for today. So first things first, we're going to need models, and that is what we are going to be focusing on first and foremost, is establishing our own visual style, and we'll get to that in a second here, but that is our main goal for at least this episode, and possibly the next episode, depending on how much I can get done today. So with that said, let's stop blabbering and let's get to the actual project, shall we? Because we've got a lot to do. So let's get on to it. So first things first, we need to establish before we get started what exactly our character is going to look like. Now, we could do a one-to-one transfer if we wanted, but that would be a little difficult, because not only are the Nuclear Throne sprites sort of stylized and would probably be a little awkward in the 3D space, but it's also no fun to just do a direct translation. You know, if we're going to make our own kind of project out of it, why don't we make it our own kind of project, if you will? So before we even get started, I want to mention that this is actually a re-recording, because this is the fish model that I created. Not bad, not bad. It's pretty, you know, it's all right. It's all right. And then I decided, okay, that looked pretty good. Let's start working on the bandit model. And yeah. So it looks okay, it looks okay, but let us go back to the fish model. So if it's not obvious by now, the main problem is that they're obviously two very differently designed models. They don't really have the consistency, they don't have the same size, and I really didn't pick up on this discrepancy until it was far too late. So we're not only going to be redoing these models, but we're going to actually do them in a new style that is very much consistent, is actually going to hopefully help me stay on track and make sure that the models all have the same characteristics and similar builds and whatnot. We're going to go with a peg style, so that it sort of represents like a board game sort of feeling, you know, so the characters are going to be meant more to look like a Monopoly piece or like a Sorry piece or something, you know, a board game figure, rather than like sort of some kind of weird 3D representation of their character. So there we go, there's our peg, our template for every character that we're going to be making, but I'm going to have to go ahead and redo his entire look in this new style. So I've got some reference photos here, some of them in-game art. Most of them are actually the fan gamer images, just so I can get a gist of what Fish looks like in 3D space. Unfortunately, I don't own the actual Fangamer models as much as I would like to, but god, they are expensive. So basically what I can gather from everything I've seen of Fish is Fish has a very flat face and a round head. So that should be a pretty easy transition, or easy build, if you will. So the way I look at it is, this is the skull, and everything that I'm adding to it is sort of like, you know, the addition of space. It's our basic Fish face, extended eyebrows so far, and got the lips. So I want his eyes to be embedded, but they'd only be 1 pixel wide. Okay, that's just fine. It's fine. We'll just bring out his entire head, extend his head outwards a bit. Now he looks like he's doing duck face. Let's not do that. I don't know Fish too well, but I don't think Fish would do duck face. He doesn't seem like the type to take a duck face selfie. Then again, you know, you never know. Yeah, if we look at it from like that perspective, his lips only go out as far as his eyebrows do. Again, he's very flat-faced, you know. So it's not like he has much roundage. There's not much of a round factor to his face. This is why it's harder to translate the 2D sprites into 3D. So if you look at this, the shape of Fish's entire, obviously the body as well, but the face doesn't match with this, you know, like the 3D just doesn't mix. So again, we could have made like a 1-to-1 of this or a 1-to-1 of this, but we could never do like a hybrid of the two because they're so different. Which is fine, you know. It just means that gives us more, I guess, maybe opportunity for artist interpretation. So really, we don't need to touch the back side, the back of the head. We can, I don't know, maybe round this out a bit, give it more of a roundish feature. Now it's a little hard now because it's all singular colors, but we're not going to be messing with shadows, you know, in the final product. It's going to be very singular colored. Again, if you've seen any of the examples of this in action, you know what I'm talking about. But this is a basic angle that we're going to be seeing things at, so we're not really going to be seeing the eyes, so we need to make sure that the lips are very prominent, the eyebrows. We're probably going to have to put in some pseudo shadowing in the color spaces to give it more definition, but it's coming along. I'm going to do the ears. I don't even know what you call them. I wonder if that's too long. Is that too long? Is that gonna be a problem? Actually, I kind of like it. It's a little exaggerated, so you can kind of tell what it is. I'm gonna come back, probably add some yellow to that once we start coloring it. Alright, now to do the head. I don't exactly know how to make it in a way that it looks good, you know. The fin thing, the fin mohawk, is completely different depending on which one we want to go with. Now from a 3D perspective, this makes more sense, but from a recognizable perspective, this makes more sense, you know. And right now it looks more like he's wearing a Santa hat, which would be appropriate if we were still in Christmas, but we're not. Now it looks kind of just weird. I'm just experimenting right now, just trying to figure something out that'll look good. My initial thought was, what if I just let it go both ways, you know? It's kind of like a funky mohawk, but I don't think that's going to work either. I think that looks worse. than having it just go one way, so either going forward or backwards. Because the reality is, if I do it all the way down to the back of the head like this, it just doesn't look right, you know? Bring it up more so it's more obvious that's a mohawk. That kind of looks cool. Looks much more slick back than I think it would look, though. Once I bring it out more, how do I bring this out more? So that I can get more opportunities to maybe make it more yellow and green. This is already deriving from the character. This is much more like this style than this style, you know? Which I think is kind of what we need. I think we need to go with the exaggerated front. Maybe it matches up with the face. Maybe even curls out above the face. No, that's too much. So at least that way, it's an obvious mohawk, you know? It looks much more obvious that way. Especially when we're going to color it. I mean, again, you're not going to see a lot of this because we're not going to have shadowing. We're pretty much going to be relying on two specific colors, which are yellow and green, to really differentiate between the angles and which way you're facing. So that's going to be the more important part, is making sure that you can see the yellow so that you can tell which way you're facing in the 3D space, because we're not going to be using shadowing. That looks alright. I think that actually looks okay. Having the exaggerated mohawk sort of just jutting straight up and out, I kind of feel like that does a lot more for the definition of the character than, say, being more subtle with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do a test color. Let's just see what this bad boy looks like colored up a bit. So how are you guys doing? Hope you guys are doing fine. Hope you guys had a great New Year's. You know, it's kind of late for me to be hoping you guys had a good New Year in 2017. Towards the end of the month already, but hey, you know, better late than never. You guys had a wonderful holiday season as well. You guys all greened up. Okay, let's do a bit of the details here. These are all temporary colors anyway, because I'm gonna go back in and refine them later. So they do just pure yellow. They don't even bother with doing any kind of greens, you know. And we might do the same. I know I wanted to do greens here, but it might be better, for definition's sake, to go with just with the basic yellows and greens. We're not going to be doing any shadowing, so we're gonna pretty much have to define everything through the coloring. You know, that turned out a lot better than I thought it would. That actually looks pretty good. So if we theoretically, this is what it would look like in game, again minus the shadowing. You know what? I think that works. The yellow is a good indicator of which way you're facing. In partnership, we're gonna have to actually mix this up, because we're actually gonna have to mix up the whether or not we want to. These ears are not gonna, or these whatever the hell you call them, are not gonna look right when we put them into the game. So we're actually gonna have to add, regardless, we're gonna have to thicken these up, because otherwise we're gonna get that phantom effect that we got in the last episode. Yeah, so that's the unfortunate thing, is it looks good. It looks good from here, you know. Very defined, very much in the character, you know. But the problem is that when we start going like this, then this is all just going to be green with the little yellow bits. Don't necessarily know if that's going to translate well. It's not terrible though. It's not terrible. I'm honestly liking this model a lot more than the other model that I made already. Already with this peg character motif, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm actually liking it a lot more. Alright, well, I wanted to hopefully get 2 models done, but I realized I spent more time on this fish model than I anticipated. So I'm actually going to call it there for now. Next episode, we're going to be starting on the bandit. Hopefully this time around I don't mess up the dimensions again, and we can actually get some consistent character models, and we can continue this awesome peg effect. I'm actually liking this a lot. I was afraid of what it would look like in this style, and going with something a lot more simplistic. But I like how the mohawk turned out. I like how the ears turned out. We'll see how those work out. We might need to go just full yellow. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that'll do it for the first episode in this new adventure into a new project, a new detour, if you will. And as always, if you enjoyed what you saw here and you want to see more, be sure to leave a like. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that little bell to make sure that you are notified when the next episode of this fantastic mashup goes up. Oh, fantastic. Might be a little biased there, but hey, whatever. Nonetheless, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. There's nothing fancy about the process, just a matter of placing voxels where they made sense, and eventually I carved out our protagonist. Unfortunately, the translation of my stylized cat left me with more of a dog than a cat, so I went with the dog.